On 911, a fierce tornado hits a small town.
It was like nothing I'd ever seen before.
And emergency crews struggle to rescue those trapped by the devastation.
It was amazing to see how much damage a storm like that could do.
One.
For all of nature's beauty, there's another side that can be unpredictable, destructive, even deadly, as people throughout the Midwest discovered early in the summer of 1990.
Off in the distance, you could hear a rumble. You could hear it, you could feel it, and you knew what it was going to do.
I could hear the trees getting crumbled, like there were giant hands that were just wadding trees up. It was like nothing I'd ever seen before. Just complete, total devastation.
On June 2nd, residents of the small town of Harrison, Ohio, were closely monitoring storm warnings on the local news. Watching the news together that night were John Payne and his wife, Kathy, and Doug Newscable, a friend and fellow firefighter.
Meaning that if you're in the path of the storm, take cover. This is nothing to mess around with. It's a very serious storm.
We immediately knew that we needed to get our kids who were asleep upstairs into the basement.
I went up to the kitchen to call my mom and to tell her to come up to my house because they didn't have a basement.
Her mother and two younger sisters lived a half a mile away.
She said no, that there wasn't enough time, that she would wake the girls up and they would take cover.
Okay, sweetheart.
Tornadoes are very dangerous because they move very swiftly and you have a very short amount of time to react and to move to a safe area. In that time period, our pagers had gone off, and Doug and I then left for the firehouse.
As the storm worsened, off-duty firefighter Rob Haynes was also called down to the fire station.
And the wind was unbelievable, and the rain started coming down real hard. Then off in the distance, you could hear a rumble. It was like a diesel train pulling a long hill. And we saw a black column, a black formation, like a black cloud, just moving across the southwest end of town. And all I could think of was, you know, this is it. It's really happened.
When we continue.
And I said, let's get under the table for protection. And the lights went out.
Mom, where are you?
Every day, all across America, unsung heroes are on the scene, saving lives. Witness courage and compassion in action. Paramedics, next on Discovery Health Channel.
Judy Mozina alerted her daughters, Jean and Diane.
We've always had tornado watches, and I just thought it was another false alarm at first. All of a sudden, we heard, like, glass busting down the road, like the dominoes. And I said, let's get under the table for protection. And the lights went out.
Mom, where are you?
Emergency dispatcher Madigan.
I think we got it with a tornado. 911 emergency dispatcher Skinner.
We've had, I guess, a tornado go through here, and there's wires down all over the road.
Is everyone there okay?
We had approximately 280 calls in the first 35 minutes of the storm.
Okay, we'll get someone out there.
Fire Chief Alan Kennett directed the response from a mobile command unit.
Update in Henderson, we've been hit pretty hard.
Tornado knocked out all communications. There was nothing available to us to use other than our city band frequency.
Familiar with that?
We had strictly unit-to-unit communications, and that was it.
381. We have several houses leveled, high property damage.
Every available emergency vehicle from as far as 20 miles away converged on the local staging area. EMT firefighter John Payne was in charge of coordinating the rescue efforts from there.
There was quite a bit of anxiousness, both from our people, because it was our town that was hit, and also the outlying communities wanting to help.
A Cincinnati news crew was sent to the scene for a live report on the tornado. Michael Benedict was the cameraman.
When I arrived, it was really kind of an eerie quiet. There were homes leveled on, both sides of the street. I walked past this one house, and the house had been completely leveled. I mean, there was just maybe 2 walls standing. As I walked around the back of the house, the phone started ringing. It was amazing to see how much damage a storm like that could do.
We came to a dead stop because there were poles down. There was a transformer in the street, and the first thing we saw was this pile of rubble that used to be a house, and these 5 people stood up out of it.
A possible house completely demolished.
A tornado can hit in a heartbeat, and that's the thing probably that was the most difficult for us to handle, how we went from just a normal summer storm to this kind of disaster.
I came to a house that had been hit, and then half of it was completely gone, and the other half was leaning real bad, and I thought I heard something. So I reached over and I turned my radio down, and I called again, and I heard a faint voice, a woman's voice. And I thought, oh, no. So I called again, and I asked them where they were. I said, where are you? And she said, we're in the kitchen. So I radioed to the chief. I said, I have 3 people trapped in this house, and he asked me where I was. And I thought, I have no idea. It was just so confusing. There was no way to tell where you were that night.
North State Street? When the call came through with the address of the entrapment, I knew right away that it was my mother-in-law and 2 sister-in-laws. The first thing that came across my mind was, why that house? I walked up to the house that the people were trapped in, and one of the firemen came over to me and said, hey, we could use your light up here.
Well, this got about 10 minutes on it, so...
I said, you guys, you have to use this light pretty sparingly because it doesn't last very long.
Tonight, how do people achieve the glamorous look they crave to compete with the rich and famous of Hollywood? Follow stories of the ongoing search for physical perfection. Plastic Surgery Beverly Hills, tonight on Discovery Health Channel.
Harry Henson was the first paramedic on the scene.
When I first saw Jean, I just felt the weight of the rubble was resting on her shoulders, and that's the way it looked.
There's 2 more in there, so that's how we got it. Right here.
When I really got to checking above her and feeling above her and found out it wasn't, I was really, really surprised.
Mike, right there. I'll cut it out. 84 to me. All right.
The worst fear of everybody was, the complete collapse of the structure before we had time to get the women out.
Jean's legs were numb by the time she was extracted from under the collapsed walls.
The other daughter, Diane, She informed me that she really was not trapped, that she just could not get out because Gene was in the way.
This one's supposedly in good shape. Okay. Just lay back. Lay back.
There's a feeling of helplessness when you're in that kind of situation. My main worry was Jean, because I didn't know if she was paralyzed, and my mom, because my mom was still stuck in the house.
1 hour after the tornado hit, Judy was still buried under thousands of pounds of wreckage when her son-in-law, John, got to the scene.
In just a matter of seconds, they called and needed somebody to go into the back to assist the paramedic inside. I immediately took the initiative to go.
We decided to try the airbags at that time. If we tried to remove all the debris above her, that it was going to take a while. But we felt that we might be better off trying to lift it from underneath.
It was a slow process. Any sudden shift in the debris of the house might cause it to cave in on Judy.
I told her not to worry, that I was there, and I wouldn't leave her until we got her out.
John and Harry stayed inside the collapsed house with Judy for 20 minutes until the airbags raised the wreckage high enough to free her.
Coming out, guys. Coming out. Nobody move. She's out. Yeah. Right. Easy, easy. The other guys get the hell out. Make sure you other guys are clear before you let them down.
84 command. No problem. Go ahead. Everything's okay, man. Nice job.
It was overwhelming. I mean, you know, there were people there with tears in their eyes.
Everything that we do week in and week out in drills and training, it gets monotonous. But at some time or other, it pays off, and you use it, and it all comes together.
One of the worst fears a firefighter or an EMT has is to come on a scene and have it be his own family. That was probably the worst part of the whole thing.
Harrison was devastated by the tornado that night, but no one was killed.
I had no idea that it had been that bad. I just thought things in the house had fallen on us, and maybe a wall or two fell down. I had no idea that the whole house was completely flattened.
1 month later, the Mosina family has already begun rebuilding on their old site. And although 20-year-old Jean is recovering from a broken back, they know it could have been much worse.
When I think that I lived through a tornado, I feel very lucky to have made it through. I feel that was a team effort that night, that there wasn't just one person that rescued us. I feel that it was the whole rescue team that deserves credit for it.
The Mosinas will never again live in a house without a basement. They've been deeply affected by what they've been through.
Every time a storm comes by or a black cloud, you think, how bad is this storm going to be? And you watch. You don't go on with your normal life like you did before. We're indebted to a lot of people for all the help that they've given us.
Every time I walk in a firehouse, I think of how much I owe my fellow firefighters for what they did for me and my family.
Next.
Next, step inside the command center where the calls for help are answered and meet the real-life heroes who save lives. Stay tuned for another episode of Rescue 911. Next on Discovery Health Channel. Real life, medicine, miracles.
Mr. Shapiro, step out of the car, please.